All right, let's fire things up today.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're going on a deep dive into Mount Etna,
Ooh, exciting.
Europe's largest active volcano. And our source today is the Love to Visit Italy newsletter.
Sounds like a good one.
It is. It's packed with fascinating facts and tips that'll make you feel like you're right there on the slopes.
Well, hopefully not too close to the slopes if it's erupting.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
It's not all about adventure, though, is it?
Right.
Understanding Etna, you've got to grasp its power, its history, and I think most importantly, its impact on the people who live right there in its shadow.
Yeah, and I mean, the newsletter wastes no time getting to the power, right? It opens with Etna's eruption just last year in August 2024.
Oh, wow. Recent.
It sent a massive ash cloud 10 kilometers into the sky. 10 kilometers.
I mean,
That's taller than Mount Everest.
wow. Yeah, it's hard to even wrap your head around, isn't it?
It's massive.
It's absolutely massive, and the impact was immediate. Catania, Sicily's second largest city, basically shut down.
I can
Okay.
imagine.
And, of course, the airport closed. Again.
Again.
It seems like every time Etna erupts, Catania Airport has to close. This isn't just some sort of geological event happening out there in the distance. It's a force that directly shapes daily life for these people.
It really is. It's like you say, it's not just a picturesque mountain in the distance. It's right there.
Right in their backyard.
Yeah, it's right there. You can't escape it.
No.
And speaking of how close it is to the people, the newsletter mentions this thing, an Egyptian obelisk
Oh, yeah.
in Catania's main piazza
Okay.
that's believed to have the power to, temper Etna's fury.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
I mean, that just shows you how deeply intertwined Etna is with the local culture. Can you imagine living with this, colossal, unpredictable force just looming over you?
All the time.
All the time. You'd be looking for any kind of protection you could get,
Right, right.
even if it meant, turning to ancient beliefs
Exactly.
for that protection.
I wonder how many myths and legends, I mean, there's probably so many
Oh, I'm sure.
that have just sprung up around Etna over the centuries.
Thousands of years worth of stories.
Right. And speaking of its long history, the newsletter mentions that Catania was actually buried in lava during an eruption in 1663.
Wow.
Completely buried.
That's incredible.
And it's not ancient history either. Etna has erupted at least 80 times in the last century alone.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like, why would anyone live there?
Well, I guess they've just kind of adapted to it.
Yeah, well, they say volcanic soil is fertile, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
From all those minerals being released. So it's a balance, right?
Yeah, a trade-off. Risk-reward.
Yeah. But for anyone considering, getting up close and personal, maybe even climbing Etna,
Oh, yeah.
understanding those risks
Crucial.
is very important, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of wanted to bring you in here, right? When we talk about an active volcano like Etna, what are the dangers? Because I'm just picturing lava flows.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's got to be more than that.
Oh, lava is definitely one piece of the puzzle. But what makes climbing an active volcano really uniquely dangerous
Yeah.
is that the landscape itself is constantly changing. It's in flux.
Hmm.
So, yeah, you mentioned lava flows, but did you know that there are different types of lava flows
Really?
that behave differently? You have, one is called pahoho.
Ho ho.
Pahoho.
Hmm.
It's smooth and ropey, so you could kind of walk over that. It'd be kind
Yeah.
of difficult.
Okay.
But then you have what's called a
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh-huh.
a lava is very sharp and jagged, very treacherous terrain. So you could imagine
Oh, so even the solidified lava is dangerous.
even the solidified lava is dangerous.
Okay. Wow. And I remember you mentioned something earlier about projectiles.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah, imagine, you're hiking up the slope
Yeah.
and suddenly the volcano ejects molten rock, ash, debris high into the air,
Shoots it out.
shoots it way up. These are called volcanic bombs.
Volcanic bombs. That sounds terrifying.
And they can range in size from tiny little pebbles to small cars.
What? Small cars being hurled through the air?
Yeah, and they can be launched at incredibly high speeds.
Oh my gosh.
So being caught in the path of one of those would be disastrous.
Yeah, disastrous is a good word for that. I'm starting to get why they say this is not a climb for the faint of heart. What other dangers are there?
Well, even the ground itself can be really unstable.
Oh, right.
Riddled with these hidden crevasses.
You could just fall through.
Yeah, it could just open up beneath you. And then you have these things called fumaroles.
Fumaroles.
Yeah, there are openings in the Earth's crust that release these toxic gases, sulfur dioxide being one of the main ones.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
these can be really dangerous, even fatal,
Yeah.
especially if you're in high concentrations of them.
It's like every step is a calculated risk.
It is. It is.
But
Yeah.
let's say, someone is drawn to that challenge.
Right.
What would they need to do
Yeah. What kind of precautions would they need to take?
to even attempt it? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I mean, and this might seem obvious, but checking the volcano's activity level
Okay.
is non-negotiable.
Like before you go.
Yeah. There are monitoring agencies
Right.
that provide like up-to-the-minute updates, alert systems.
Oh, wow.
Ignoring those warnings would just be, I mean, reckless.
Yeah, that's asking for trouble.
And then probably the most important thing is going with a certified guide,
Oh, okay.
someone who knows the
Like
terrain.
the back of their hand.
Yeah, someone who can interpret, subtle signs
Oh, okay.
of activity
Yeah.
and knows how to react if something happens.
So like more than just your average hiking guide.
Much more. This is like volcano expertise.
Right, right. What about
Thanks.
gear? Would it be like normal mountain climbing gear?
Well, yeah, you would want, the standard mountaineering gear,
Okay.
sturdy boots, layers of clothing. The weather can change really quickly.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Helmet is essential,
Right, right.
but you'd also need a gas mask.
Because of the sulfur dioxide?
The sulfur dioxide, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow.
Because those concentrations can change rapidly.
Oh.
Without a mask, you're putting your health at serious risk.
So preparation is key.
Preparation is absolutely key.
Yeah, and even then it's like a dance with danger.
It is dance with danger. That's a good way to put it.
But I'm curious, like what motivates people to even attempt this? Is it just the thrill?
There's definitely the human desire to test our limits, to stand face to face with this raw power of nature.
Right,
I
right.
think that's definitely a factor. But for many, I think it's also the scientific curiosity,
Oh, yeah.
the chance to witness these geological processes firsthand,
Yeah.
to see the lava flows, to study the formation of those volcanic bombs, to feel that heat emanating from the earth. It's a really unique and powerful experience.
It's like stepping back in time, seeing how the planet was formed.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's amazing. And I imagine the views from the summit, if you make it,
Oh, I bet they're incredible.
must be just incredible.
I've heard that the vistas for the top of Etna are just breathtaking. You can see for miles across the Sicilian landscape, all the way to the Mediterranean Sea.
Wow.
It's a real reminder of just the immense power of nature, and our own kind of smallness in comparison.
It sounds like a journey that would challenge you, like physically and mentally,
For sure.
but also give you like this profound sense of perspective.
Oh, yeah.
But knowing what we know now
Yeah.
about like the unpredictable nature of Etna,
Right.
would you personally be brave enough to try to climb it?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
The scientist in me, is fascinated.
Yeah.
But the part of me that values a good night's sleep
Right.
might opt for, admiring Etna's beauty from a safer distance.
Maybe with a nice picnic basket
Yeah, picnic basket.
from binoculars.
Yeah, far away from any potential projectiles.
Exactly. All right. Well, maybe we'll add surviving a volcanic eruption to our bucket list for another day.
Yeah, maybe.
But joking aside, the newsletter highlights a really interesting point.
Okay.
It says that Etna is more than just this like geological formation.
Oh, yeah, it's like a living being almost.
It's woven into the very fabric of Sicilian culture and history.
It is, yeah.
And that, that brings us back to that legend of the Egyptian obelisk
Right.
that's supposed to protect the city. It's a real tangible reminder of how deeply ingrained Etna is.
In the local folklore.
Yeah, in their beliefs, everything. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
It is. It really speaks to the human need to find meaning, I think,
Yeah.
and make sense of these forces that are just so beyond our control.
These massive forces. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think we've barely scratched the surface here.
I think we've got a lot more to uncover.
But before we dive deeper into like Etna's cultural significance, I want to pause here for a second and ask you, our listener, a question. Knowing everything we've discussed so far
Yeah.
about like the beauty and the danger, the risks and the rewards,
Right.
would you be tempted to climb Mount Etna? What draws you to the idea and what gives you pause? I mean, it's just something to think about, and we'll pick up this conversation in the next part.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
How we as humans, like, deal with risk.
Especially when it's something as incredible as Mount Etna, you know?
Yeah, that pull
Yeah.
between knowing it's dangerous and just wanting to be in the presence of something so powerful.
Exactly. It's like our rational brain is like, no, stay away.
Uh-huh.
And the other part of you is like, I have to see this.
And there's a whole field of study dedicated to risk perception.
Really?
Yeah, psychologists have found that, the way we see risk,
Mm-hmm.
it's influenced by a bunch of things, our personalities, our experiences, even how information is presented to us.
So someone who's like grown up hiking in the mountains might feel differently about it than someone who, has always lived in a city.
Exactly, yeah. And even, like, the way a news story talks about a volcano
Oh, interesting.
can change how we see the danger. Like, if it focuses on the destruction, we might be more scared.
Right.
But if it shows how beautiful it is, it might make it seem, exciting.
Okay, so our brains are always weighing like
Yeah.
the good and the bad.
Totally. Always calculating if it's worth the risk.
And sometimes the emotional part wins.
Definitely. Like, think about extreme sports or exploring new places. There's that drive in us to push boundaries.
It's that need to like connect with something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, and that connection, it can be really powerful. Imagine standing on a volcano, feeling the heat, seeing these forces that shaped our planet.
Yeah, it's like,
That's got to be humbling.
yeah, absolutely. Speaking of which, I want to go back to the culture side of Mount Etna for a bit.
Okay, yeah,
You mentioned it's not just geology, it's woven into the history and the culture of Sicily.
totally. It's been there for thousands of years. Its eruptions have shaped the land, but also the stories and beliefs of the people.
Like the legend of that Egyptian obelisk.
Oh, right, the one that's supposed to, like, control Etna's fury.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Well, it stands in Catania's main piazza, but it's actually from ancient Egypt,
Wow.
brought over by the Romans, and eventually people started believing it could protect them from the volcano.
It's amazing how objects can become so important to people over time, you know?
Right, like a symbol of hope against these forces they can't control.
Exactly. And the obelisk is just one example. I bet there are tons of stories and myths about Etna.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like tales of gods and giants battling on the volcano, or festivals to appease the volcano's spirit.
It's almost like it has this spiritual presence in Sicilian culture.
It does, yeah. It's both life-giving and destructive. This powerful force demanding respect. And that respect is everywhere, from how they farm the land to religious processions up the mountain.
So it really affects every part of their lives.
Totally. But what about the people who actually live on Etna's slopes?
Yeah, what's that like, building a life right there?
Well, for them, it's just normal life. They've learned to live with the volcano, respect its power, and go with its flow. Like, they have special ways to farm the volcanic soil,
Okay.
and their communities are built to withstand eruptions.
So it's not just about fear, it's about resilience too.
Exactly. They understand the volcano and its cycles. They know the risk comes with reward, like the ash that buries crops also makes the soil rich. It's a balance.
Like they have this special relationship with the volcano.
Yeah, they benefit from it and respect it at the same time. And that
Mhm.
goes beyond just practical things. Their identity is tied to the land, to the volcano.
Like they're connected to it in a deep way.
Exactly. And that brings us back to risk, right? For them, it's not some theory, it's real life. They get how the volcano behaves.
Hmm.
They have ways to stay safe, but they also accept that some things are out of their control.
That the volcano is always going to be unpredictable.
Yeah. It's humbling, realizing that nature has the final say, no matter how much we try to control it.
It really makes you think.
It does. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons from Etna. It reminds us of the power and beauty of nature and how important it is to respect it.
Absolutely. Now, from a science perspective, what makes Mount Etna so fascinating to study?
Well, its size and activity, for one. It's huge, the largest active volcano in Europe, and it's been erupting basically nonstop for a long time.
Wow.
So it's a perfect place to learn about how volcanoes work, from lava flows to, well, those volcanic bombs we talked about.
Like a giant natural lab for volcanologists?
Exactly. And every eruption gives us more data to understand them better, maybe even predict them in the future.
So every time it erupts, scientists are rushing to study it.
Yeah. And it's not just the volcano itself. The eruptions affect everything around it, the air, the sea life, so many things. Studying Etna involves all sorts of science, geology, chemistry, even biology.
It's amazing how one volcano can have such a big impact on everything.
And it's both destructive and creative, right?
Mhm.
It can destroy forests and towns,
Yeah.
but also create new land, fertile soil, new places for plants and animals to live. It's like a cycle.
Like a mini version of how the Earth itself changes.
Totally. And speaking of change, is Etna always changing? Like, are there new things forming all the time?
That's a good question.
Because it is so active.
Yeah, it's constantly erupting.
Yeah, it's a dynamic system, always evolving. Every eruption creates new craters, lava flows, and then those erode over time, new ecosystems appear.
So even in a human lifetime, you could see big changes on Etna.
Oh yeah, definitely. There are cases of new craters appearing, lava changing direction, even entire mountain slopes collapsing during big eruptions.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it shows the power of nature and how nothing stays the same forever.
It makes you wonder what'll happen to Etna in the future.
Right. Will it erupt more often? Will those eruptions be bigger? How will people adapt?
It's fascinating to think about. I think we've covered so much in this deep dive.
We have.
From the geology to the history, the culture, even how we see risk. What a journey.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting exploration. From the inside of the Earth to how people think about volcanoes.
And I think for me, the biggest thing is that sense of connection, how everything is linked, how an eruption affects the food they grow. It just shows we're part of nature, not separate from it.
Yeah, it really brings that home, doesn't it? We like to think we're in control, but nature has its own plans.
It
And
ju-
volcanoes like Etna remind us of that.
Yeah, powerful reminder that the Earth is alive and changing, and we're just along for the ride.
And what a ride it is. The eruptions, the landscapes, it's unlike anything else. Etna challenges us, makes us think, and just leaves us in awe.
I think you summed it up perfectly. And for our listeners who want to learn even more, where should they go?
Well, there's so much online, websites about geology, volcano observatories. You can even take virtual tours.
Oh, cool.
And if you're thinking of going to Italy, check out the Love to Visit Italy newsletter, our source for this deep dive.
They have great travel tips.
Yeah. So whether you're just curious or planning a trip, there's a way for everyone to experience Etna. Read about the science, learn the stories, or just look at the amazing pictures and videos.
Maybe someday you'll even be there, feeling the heat and seeing it all for yourself.
That would be something else, an experience you wouldn't forget.
Definitely. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, we want to thank you, our listener, for being here with us.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring Mount Etna.
And remember, there's so much to discover out there. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into things that interest you. Until next time, arrivederci.
Wow, it's incredible to think back on everything we've learned about Mount Etna.
I know, right? It's amazing how much there is to discover about one volcano.
It really shows you how complex these natural wonders are.
Yeah, volcanoes aren't just about, like, the eruptions and the lava. They're intertwined with so much. The landscape, the history, even human psychology.
And I think that connection between the science and the human side is what makes this so fascinating. Totally. We talked about the science of how Etna erupts, but also the myths people tell about it. And even how our brains try to, like, make sense of the danger.
And for me, one of the biggest takeaways is this sense of, like, everything being connected, how an eruption affects the soil, the food, everything. It's like a reminder that we're not separate from nature.
Yeah, we're a part of it. Even with all our technology and everything, we can't escape the power of nature. And Etna is a pretty powerful symbol of that, I think.
Oh, definitely. It reminds us that the Earth is constantly changing and we're just along for the ride.
And it's a pretty exciting ride. From the fiery eruptions to the quiet beauty of the landscape. Etna really makes you think and challenges how you see things.
It leaves you in awe, for sure. I think you've captured it perfectly. And for our listeners who want to learn more, what resources would you recommend?
Well, there's a ton of information online. You can check out websites from geological surveys or volcano observatories. There are even like virtual tours and documentaries you can find.
Ah, that's cool. And of course, for anyone dreaming of visiting Italy, don't forget the Love to Visit Italy newsletter. They have great tips for planning a trip.
Yeah, definitely. So whether you're just curious or planning a trip, there's so many ways to experience Etna. You can read about the science, learn the stories, or even just look at pictures and videos.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll find yourself standing on the slopes of Etna, feeling the heat, and seeing it all firsthand.
Now, that would be an experience you'd never forget.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the heart of Mount Etna, I want to thank you, our listener, for joining us.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring this fascinating topic with us.
And remember, the world is full of amazing things to discover, so keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the things that make you curious. Until next time, arrivederci.